Okay, today we're diving into Palantir Technologies.
Right, PLTR. A lot happening there.
Exactly. We'll be looking at their first quarter 2025 earnings, how the market reacted, what analysts are thinking.
And also that interesting angle about U.S. lawmakers trading the stock recently.
Yes, definitely want to touch on that. So quite a bit to unpack. And hey, if you find this sort of analysis helpful, please do take a second to like and subscribe. It really helps us out.
Absolutely. Okay, so kicking off with those Q1 earnings for 2025.
Yeah, let's start there. What did the top line look like?
Well, revenue came in pretty strong. We're talking between roughly $862 million and $884 million, depending on the exact report you look at.
And that's a big jump year over year, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, 36% growth compared to last year. And it also beat the analyst consensus, which was sitting around that $861 to $863 million mark.
Okay, so a solid beat on revenue. How about earnings per share?
EPS was $3.13. That met expectations exactly. Adjusted EPS also landed at 17 cents.
Right. And they broke down the revenue geographically too, didn't they?
Yeah.
How did the U.S. perform?
The U.S. was a real powerhouse. Revenue there grew 55% year over year, reaching $628 million.
Wow, 55%.
And within that, the U.S. commercial side was, frankly, explosive, up 71% year over year to $255 million.
71%. That's incredible growth in commercial.
It really is. The U.S. government side also did well, climbing 45% to $373 million. So strong across the board in the states.
And are they adding new customers?
They are. Customer count grew 39% compared to last year and 8% just from the previous quarter.
Seems like they're closing bigger deals too.
Definitely looks that way. They reported closing 139 deals worth over $1 million each.
139.
Yeah, and get this, 51 of those were worth at least $5 million, and 31 deals actually topped $10 million.
Those are significant contracts. What about cash flow?
Looked healthy. Cash from operations was $310 million for the quarter.
And adjusted free cash flow?
That came in at $370 million. They also finished the quarter with a really strong balance sheet, $5.4 billion in cash, cash equivalents, and short-term U.S. treasuries.
Okay, so the Q1 picture looks, well, pretty rosy financially. What about their outlook? What are they guiding for next quarter and the full year?
Right, the forward guidance. For Q2 2025, they're projecting revenue between $934 million and $938 million.
And how does that compare to expectations?
That's actually quite a bit higher than what analysts were forecasting, which was around the $898 to $899 million level.
So a confident outlook for Q2 and for the full year 2025.
They raised their full-year revenue guidance pretty substantially. They're now expecting $3.89 billion to $3.90 billion.
Okay, 3.89 to 3.90 billion. Where was it before?
Well, the analyst projection was around $3.75 billion, and Palantir's own prior guidance was in the range of $3.74 billion to $3.76 billion. So a significant bump up.
That is a big increase. Any specifics on the U.S. commercial side for the full year? That segment was booming.
Yes, they specifically guided for full-year U.S. commercial revenue to beat $1.178 billion.
Over $1.178 billion.
Which implies a growth rate of at least 68%. That's also up from their previous guidance, which was over $1.079 billion.
They seem very confident in that commercial momentum. What about profitability guidance?
Also raised. Adjusted income from operations is now expected between $1.711 billion and $1.723 billion.
And the previous range?
Was $1.551 billion to $1.567 billion. So again, a noticeable increase.
Okay. Free cash flow outlook too?
Yep, that got a boost as well. Adjusted free cash flow outlook is now $1.6 billion to $1.8 billion.
Up from
$1.5 billion to $1.7 billion previously.
And they still expect to be profitable on a GAAP basis.
Yes, they reiterated their expectation for positive GAAP operating income and net income for every single quarter in 2025.
So strong Q1 results, raise guidance across the board. You'd think the stock would soar, right?
You would think so, but that's not quite what happened immediately after the report.
What was the reaction?
Well, despite all that positive news, Palantir shares actually fell quite sharply in after-hours trading on Monday, May 5th, dropped nearly 10%.
10% after beating and raising.
Yeah, it settled around $112.35 after hours. And this was after an absolutely massive rally. The stock was up nearly 90% in the month leading up to the report.
90% in a month. Okay, that context helps.
Right. It had just closed at a record weekly high around $124 and was even trading above $126 right before the earnings came out.
So why the drop then? profit-taking.
That's likely a big part of it. After a run like that, some investors were probably just locking in those significant gains.
Makes sense.
Also, expectations might have just gotten so high that even beating estimates and raising guidance wasn't quite enough for some. Maybe the Q2 outlook, while strong, wasn't the massive blowout some were hoping for.
The classic sell the news event, maybe.
Could be, yeah. Or just expectations getting a little ahead of themselves. But the company itself sounds incredibly bullish. CEO Alex Karp talked about a tectonic shift and surging and ferocious growth in AI adoption driving their business.
Right, that AI narrative is key for them.
Definitely. But it's also worth noting that technically the stock looked pretty stretched going into earnings. The relative strength index, the RSI, was well above 70.
So in overbought territory.
Yeah.
Suggesting a pullback might have been due anyway.
Exactly. It set the stage for a potential correction, even on good news.
Okay, so the immediate market reaction was negative despite the numbers. What about the broader analyst view? Are they still bullish?
Well, it's a bit mixed, actually. The overall consensus rating among analysts is neutral.
Neutral, even with that growth.
Yeah, and what's more interesting is that the recent price targets, on average, imply a potential downside. Some are suggesting around 37% downside from those pre-earnings highs.
37% downside, wow.
The average target price from about 20 analysts is around $90. The range is huge, though a high of $125, but a low of just $40.
$40, that's a massive spread.
It is. And if you look at the price before the drop, say $123.77, that average target of $90 implies something like a 27% potential decline. One analysis even puts the fair value way down at $27.12.
$27, that seems incredibly low given the current performance.
It does highlight how difficult it is to value this company right now. You have this incredible growth, particularly in AI and commercial.
Yeah, stock itself has been on a tear. Up, nearly 400% over the past year?
Around 393% over the year, and something like 65% just year to date in 2025. It's massively outperformed the wider tech sector and the S&P 500.
So you have this huge divergence, amazing stock performance, strong company results, but analysts are mostly neutral with price targets suggesting downside.
Exactly. It shows the market is really grappling with how to price in that future growth and the whole AI potential. Is it overvalued now after the run-up, or are the analysts being too cautious?
A real puzzle. Now let's shift gears slightly to that other angle we mentioned, U.S. lawmakers trading Palantir stock. What's been reported there?
Right, this adds another layer. Several members of Congress have recently disclosed trades in Palantir.
Oh, interesting. Who are we talking about?
Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, for instance, reported buying Palantir shares twice in April 2025.
April. That timing is interesting, given the company's government work.
Precisely. It coincided with news about Palantir expanding its government footprint. She apparently also bought some back in February.
Is she the only one?
No. Reports indicate at least 6 other lawmakers disclosed trades this year. Names mentioned include Representatives Ro Khanna, Gil Cisneros, Julie Johnson, and James Comer.
Ro Khanna. Hasn't he traded Palantir before?
Yes. His trading history with Palantir goes back before 2025, so it's noted separately, but he's still active this year.
And obviously Palantir does a lot of government business.
Significant amount, which naturally raises ethical questions, about whether these trades are influenced by any non-public information related to government contracts or policy.
It certainly raises eyebrows. What are some of those key government contracts?
Well, they have a major multi-billion-dollar deal with NATO. Recently, there was a big contract extension with the U.S. Army for their Vantage program that was worth over $600 million, around $619 million.
Okay.
They also have a $30 million contract with ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, to build a system called the Immigration Lifecycle Operating System. That one's drawn some criticism.
I can imagine.
And there are reports linking Palantir alongside companies like SpaceX and Anduril to a missile defense initiative known as Golden Dome, which has also sparked some procurement ethics discussions.
So a deep involvement in sensitive government areas. How much did government work contribute to Q1 revenue?
It was a substantial chunk. $460 million in the first quarter came from government contracts.
Okay, $460 million, but wasn't the commercial side growing even faster?
It was. The commercial segment brought in $403 million in Q1.
Wow.
While slightly less than government in absolute terms for Q1, its growth rate was much higher, as we discussed earlier.
Right, that's 71% U.S. commercial growth.
Exactly. And CEO Alex Karp really hammered this point home, talking about that tectonic shift in software adoption, especially in the commercial world, driven by their AI platform.
AIP, right, the artificial intelligence platform.
That's the one. It seems to be the key driver for getting more commercial clients on board and using their AI tools.
So summing it all up then, it's quite a picture.
It really is. You've got very strong Q1 results, significant growth, especially U.S. commercial beating estimates.
Boosted guidance for the future, looking quite optimistic from the company's perspective.
Right. But then you have this immediate negative stock reaction, likely due to sky-high expectations and maybe some profit-taking after that huge run.
It's followed by cautious analyst sentiment, with many seeing it as neutral or even overvalued despite the performance.
And layered on top of all that, you have this ongoing activity and scrutiny around U.S. lawmakers trading the stock, given Palantir's deep ties to government work.
Yeah, that lawmaker trading adds a whole different dimension to the story.
It does. So overall, Palantir's Q1 demonstrates real momentum, particularly in AI adoption commercially. But the market's trying to figure out what that's truly worth long term.
It really highlights the tension between strong fundamental growth and market valuation, especially in a hot sector like AI, combined with the complexities of government contracts and, well, political optics.
A fascinating case study, really. Lots of moving parts.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of our look at Palantir for today.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yes, thank you for joining us. If you found this breakdown useful, please remember to hit like and subscribe. It helps others find the analysis. We'll catch you next time.